Good morning, everyone. We will call to order the meeting of January 20th regular council meeting. I will call the meeting to order, and I think seeing everyone is present, we have no exceptions or excuses. I know that there will be some councillors leaving afternoon, but we're all here, so we will get through the agenda as quickly as we can. Looking for a motion to adopt the minutes of the January 6th meeting, but are there any errors or omissions or any changes that need to be made to those minutes of the January 6th meeting? Councillor Short?
Yeah, I've got one, I think, error in one of the motions that I made. So we're checking into the accuracy of that motion. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion to post or to table the approval of the minutes until later in the meeting once we've discovered if that's right or not. Okay,
all in favor of tabling? Do we need to vote on that? That's carried. Thank you. We'll lift that from the table later in the meeting then. With regard to the agenda, are there any post-agenda items that need to be added? Seeing none, look for a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Scandrup, thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. I will say with regard to the agenda, it's a busy agenda today. There are a number of timed items, so we will try to get through as quickly as possible, and I will try to do some things to help keep us on time this morning. With that, we'll move to question period. Are there any questions or any notices of motion? Seeing none, we will continue on. We'll move now to item number, the public hearings happen at 11:30, and we have delegations from the RCMP coming in at 11. So we'll move to item number 9, and we have the Agriculture Fieldman's report. Todd, we have your report. I think that are there any questions from council? You can hear us, can you, Todd?
I can, yes.
I think we have your written report. Are there any questions for Todd with regard to the Agriculture Fieldman's report? Holly, please.
Good morning, Todd. I've read so much stuff the last couple of days, so I'm just reviewing this right now, but I had a question about, you were talking about a coyote count. Was it in this place or someplace else? And I was curious what that was.
That's a really great question. So we do a Coyote Survey every year. We used to kind of it's been a survey for well beyond the time that I was here. But long story short, we used to couple that survey because we had our Coyote Control Incentive Program where we paid hunters to control coyotes throughout our county. So we wanted to make sure we weren't having a negative impact on those population dynamics. So since we stopped doing CCIP in 2021 and we anticipate, or we're not doing it in 2022 either, we continued that survey. And basically what it is we put out scent traps on 3 specific runs in the county of Newell. There's I shouldn't quote, but I thought there was about 1,200 sites where we put out scent baits, and then we count tracks for 4 days, and that gives us a relative abundance index when we figure out how many we have. So that just allows us to gauge the population dynamics through the county. Does that help or make it more confusing? I apologize.
No, that's very clear. I don't know if you're aware that I know in Scandia area, because the cost of the amount we get paid for pelts has dropped significantly, we're not seeing the same amount of trappers. So we're certainly seeing more coyotes in our vicinity these days.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think anecdotally, we've heard that quite a bit all winter, actually. So I guess we'll see. Hopefully our survey reflects the same, and it'll allow us to make some decisions this fall if we want to bring back the CCIP program or not, I guess.
Thank you, Todd. Any other questions for Todd? If not, thank you for that report, Todd. Appreciate it. And look for a motion from council to approve the report. Amanda Philpott, thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Moving on, we have the Patricia grass fire. We'll take that at 2 o'clock. So we'll move on to item number 10.3, planning and development report. I think Maria's prepared to, or on her way down. So that's, we'll wait for a minute for that. Hi, Maria. Thanks for coming back. We'll.
Are we doing the planning and development report?
Yes, planning and development report,
Okay.
please.
I had a bit of a printing error, so I'll go through it like this. So what I've provided for the planning and development report is a year in review for 2021. We have seen a lot of changes in our department over the last couple of years. And we've been working with ISL engineering to assist us in some of the day-to-day recommendations and helping us kind of move into and grow into our department. And it's been working very well. I think that things have been going very smoothly. We had a new land use bylaw, which for the most part has been a good transition within our department. We've worked on a SWOT analysis, so looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the planning and development documents, our application forms, and pretty much everything we do. And from that, ISL has created some recommendations, so we're slowly working through those. And then we continue to do the day-to-day subdivisions, development permits, land use applications. I think all the information really is kind of laid out in that report, so if there are any questions, I'm very free to answer.
Thank you for that report, Maria. Are there any questions for Maria? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to approve the report. Councillor Holly Johnson, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for that, Maria. And we'll move on to item number 10.4, the subdivision extension request, right? You've got that one as well.
Thank you. So this is a subdivision that was the original decision was made in June 2019. Subdivision approvals are valid for 1 year. The applicant has already asked for one extension and now is requesting an additional extension. And they would like more time to satisfy the conditions of the development or of the subdivision decision. So the conditions that were placed on this subdivision in order to be finalized included that the existing dugout needs to, they either needed to change their lot lines or remove the dugout, and the applicant had decided that they would like to remove the dugout. And there are also some problems with the existing septic tank and field, and they need to have a qualified professional look at that, sign off on it before we can finalize the subdivision. So just a little bit of information. If a house is built on a quarter section, they have to follow the private sewage and disposal rules at that time. So if this house was built in the 50s, then their sewage disposal system was whatever it was, the rules at that time, which is okay to continue until the time that they subdivide. And then when you decide to subdivide, you essentially open up the books. And so that's the time where the county is able to make sure that everything is up to standard now. So in this case, it wasn't up to standard. So those are the conditions that the applicant is needing just a little bit more time on. So in reviewing the land use bylaw and the subdivision authority bylaw, staff does feel that this proposal is still acceptable and continues to meet those policies. So we are recommending that this extension request be granted.
Thank you. Are there any questions with regard to this recommendation? Councillor Johnson, please.
We're going on to 3 years and they haven't done anything yet. Don't at some point go, you know what, they're not serious. Why would we give them another extension? I'm not clear what would be the benefit to anybody.
Any comments on that, Councillor Scandro?
I just want to say I also feel that way, that they just don't seem to be serious about moving along. I feel like they keep asking for extensions and they're not going to do anything until they're forced to.
Neil?
Is this a subdivision where we got the letters?
Yes, there were letters provided at the time of subdivision that were against the proposed subdivision.
Go ahead, Neil.
Did they give you any reason on this? Like, it's really hard not to approve the extension for me because subdividing out the corners happens all over the county on a pretty regular basis. And it makes a lot of sense to do it. But I kind of agree with Holly and Adina that 3 years is a long time, especially for a big company like that. They could have that done in 6 months.
Go ahead. Maria, do you have comments on that? Or?
I think that council has the ability to decide to either go forward with this extension or not, based on the time frame and potential changes that could have happened on that property from the time the decision was made to today. I'm not aware of, and I haven't been made aware of any changes, so that could be something to consider too. And as far as the letters, they were included in the package, and so they're mostly from neighboring landowners.
Okay, what is the direction of council with regard to this? Lynette, please.
Is there a precedent already? Like, how long do you usually give somebody? Like, do we keep extending? Like, this to me just seems like it's dragging out, and there was a lot of people against it anyway. Was it just a neighbor upsetting neighbor for some reason? I don't know. I'm just looking for how we have dealt with this in the past, like, and what the precedent would be if we say, yeah, you can extend, right?
That's a good question. So what is the precedent with regard to these types of things? I agree with you. Go ahead.
Historically, the first subdivision extension has been approved. I have no experience with the second subdivision extension. So there should be a reason behind not extending the approval. But because there has been so much time between, like I had said earlier, we're not aware of what the changes could have been to the property, and that could be a reason to require this applicant to reapply.
Okay. Councillor Chrisman, please.
I feel likewise there should be a reason from the applicant for us to extend. So for that reason, I would like to make a motion that we refuse to grant the extension at this time.
Does that mean that they have to reapply, or we're just going to look at it again? Like, grant the extension at this time, will we grant it next month? So they go back to square one with Maria and start all over again?
Well, yes, my thinking is they gave us no reason to ask for an additional extension. We're being forced to give them a reason. So the reason is they were timed out.
Fair enough.
Is there more information? Oh, Councillor Short.
Could we ask them somehow to show us some kind of a proof that they are actually planning to move forward with this, instead of just extending with no intent of ever actually completing that work? Because it sounds like they need to do a septic upgrade, and that does get expensive. So I can imagine a scenario where someone just says, you know what, I'll put it off, and forgiveness and permission kind of a thing. So what if we can ask them for proof that they're actually working towards an end, and if they can show us that, then we can maybe approve an extension.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. Like this, I just did a septic. It's about $25,000-$30,000, but it improves the value of that subdivision. I can't see any reason why they're behind, but I'd like to hear from them. They may have a good reason.
It seems reasonable for council to ask for some more information with regard to the nature of this request for extension. Is that something that we can pass back to the applicant?
I think it would be fair to table this decision.
Yeah.
I could go back to the applicant, request some information, and then present this at the next council meeting.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to deny the request. Go ahead, Kelly.
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay.
And make a motion to table it for more information.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to table, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you, Maria. Appreciate that. I'm going to suggest we've got a half an hour going to 11 o'clock, so I'm going to suggest that we move at this point to item 10 point. Sorry. Which one are we on here? 11.1. Jeff, please. Yeah, municipal services business. 11.1, County of Newell Water Project Phase 2. Thanks for coming to present to us this morning, Jeff. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. And I apologize. I was really hoping to have this discussion sooner, but there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of considerations to be given to what we're about to talk about here today, and how we want to proceed, and what kind of direction goes behind it. So a little bit of background: in early 2021, County Council at that time gave direction to us to proceed with undertaking a study to determine the feasibility of servicing an additional 732 locations under the rural water distribution system off of the existing network. We took that back, and we went away with MPE, the folks that designed and administered the original project, and we took a look at it. We overlaid the points on a map. We made some high-level assumptions. We connected the existing lines to those points. We ran some hydrology to make sure, there was very low risk of running out of water or trying to pull on the system too hard. We determined that to service these 732 locations, well, for 100% security, there are some minor upgrades that could be considered, but in discussions with MPE and myself, we feel that risk is extremely low based on how the system operates and how water is drawn from the system. So we brought that back to council, and I'm not sure when it was here, but I have the motion in the package that council made coming out of there, and that was that we should proceed with some form of a County of Newell Water Project Phase 2. They also added that those new units should be charged at a rate of $1,500, and that was great. So that's where we sat today, and I've come back now and kind of determined what we as administration might require or might need direction on to proceed with the first step of the rural water project, if you will, which is, last time and it is recommended at this time again is a registration campaign to solicit interest, to make sure that it's a viable project, to make sure that people out there who aren't hooked up do actually want to hook up and are willing to pay the costs associated with that as determined by council. So as you see here, my RFD is broken out into a number of sections through the discussion. I might jump first back to the costs and funding sources section of the RFD and just talk about a little bit what came out of that study. Now, on the costs and funding sources, you'll see the table of costs. This is directly from the rural water feasibility study. If anybody had a chance to look through that, and it pencils out as an estimated cost to service all 732 locations of just over $15 million. Now, that cost is quite dependent on a number of assumptions. Assumption number one is that these are the 732 locations that we're servicing. We know that's likely not going to be exactly accurate. People have constructed probably some new houses since this data was input. Some people may not register if that's an option that they're given in the end. But high level, just over 15 million to service the remaining. You can see that average cost per service comes down to just over $20,000 in this estimation, whereas in the original project it was closer to, I believe off the top of my head, around $36,000 or $37,000 cost per service. Obviously, that's because we've got a lot of pipeline in the ground. We've got a lot of infrastructure that's going to assist in servicing the extension of that. So those costs were borne by the original project, and we're going to see a little bit of benefit there. So as you see the costs there, funding estimates, a registration contribution, again, if we got all 732 registrants at the $1,500 as moved previously, we'd be just over $1 million. Our MSI contributions from previous years at about 4.3, and we've got a couple more years of allocations left before they run that program out. And kind of the shortfall of those two financing streams comes out to just over $6.2 million. And talking to Matt, that could look at some bridge financing with the debenture period and repayment coming back over 5 years. So that's kind of what the budget looks like. And again, these are based on some assumptions and previous motions that were made. And what I'd like to do today is kind of talk about, I think, 7 or 8 different areas. If you look at the recommended motion, I kind of put some bullet points in there. Not sure how else to word such a motion where we require a lot of information to proceed with a registration campaign that's efficient and effective, and we can answer people's questions when they come to the counter, because there's a lot of questions, and I know I haven't covered them all off in here. This is just kind of the major hitters that we learned from last time, and I'll likely be back interimly here asking more questions and getting more direction. So I think if I can just kind of walk through the discussion and maybe at each kind of point, at each kind of heading, I'll kind of explain it and then field any questions and go from there. That might be the most effective way to get through it. The first question that the administration needs direction on is who are we going to service and at what cost? Initially, in the outset of the first phase of the CNWP, we opened it up to everybody. We opened it up to vacant parcels. We opened it up. Anybody could run a service to any property they owned at a cost of $7,000. We ran a registration campaign. That campaign closed. We had just about 60%, or maybe less than that, 58% of people signed up. Council said that's not enough. We need more buy-in than this to move forward with it. Let's see if we can drop the registration fee. We dropped the registration fee to $1,000, and we got up in that 80 percentile area to register, and that was a lot of the feedback we heard. 7,000 was a little bit much to spend, and a lot of people would register if the costs could come down. So we did that, and we got registration. This round of the project might be a little bit different because we do have that existing infrastructure in the ground. At the outset of the project, originally we were able to design right from the water treatment plant and the regional transmission mains as to how much water was necessary and how many people we were going to service. Well, now we've got a bunch of infrastructure built out, and we did build capacity in that infrastructure to service additional people. But what we didn't do and what we didn't look at in the study was the ability to service vacant parcels. So any vacant parcels that would be allowed to register under this program could affect that capacity of the system and capacity of the line, and could cause further incurred costs to twin a line or increase the size of it to provide an ample amount of water at any specific location. So what we looked at in the study, like I say, was those 732 locations, and basically what we're looking for direction on here, and our recommendation is that we only service assessed habitable dwellings or assessed commercial operations in the county, because that's what the study says, and that's kind of what we're basing our go forward off of. We still recommend that people who have built houses since this are serviced. We feel there's very low risk in servicing those locations, even to the point where somebody has a development permit application in, we would be comfortable servicing those as well. That was the theory last time, and it worked really well, and to be honest, we didn't run into a lot of those situations, so I don't find it as a threat. So that's my recommendation, is to only service the assessed habitable dwellings, the assessed commercial operations, and to service those at a rate of $1,500. And I can answer any questions or comments on that point.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. There will probably be some questions. I have one. Do you have an estimate of what I'm not sure what the right word is, redundant capacity of the system is? Like how much expansion capacity is there in the current build, assuming that all 700, whether the 732 came in or didn't come in, what is the additional capacity from where we're at today?
The additional capacity and within the report, it says that we, with very little risk and without doing any upgrades, can service all 732 locations. Now, when we talk about capacity of the system, that's very location dependent. You know what I mean? And probably the biggest determining factor on that is elevation and what happens. If a house is on a hill, it's really unbelievable how much pressure water loses as it climbs and as it drops as well. Rolling hills is quite a lower elevation than here, and we see that in the water pressures in the pipeline. So the capacity that we looked at in designing the initial phase was to be able to service everybody that every residence and commercial business that existed in the county at that time. Now, I did talk a little bit about one or two areas that, you know, if this person registers, or if that person registers, we may want to look at some upgrades, but those are very far-fetched. And like I say, in discussions with MP and the engineers, we feel that the risk of not performing those upgrades while still servicing those people is extremely low and almost non-existent.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? Neil, please.
Yeah, going forward, Jeff, let's say there's a subdivision wants to come in wherever, 100 homes, and we put it out that we're done with the water. How do you solve that? Or what's your idea? Like, we want to promote economic development. We want things to happen. Can we look after them too, and at what kind of cost?
Again, that I think would be very, very location dependent. Our most onerous areas to deal with something like that are the outlying areas. Gem, north of Bassano, are very high elevation locations where we had to install booster stations to lift the water to get to those locations. It's really unbelievable. But, you know, for example, the line that goes along Highway 556, it is on the way down to Emerson Bridge Park, the pressure at the top of the hill there is almost zero. There's barely any pressure. And at the bottom of the hill, it's over 100 pounds. So there's plenty of water at Emerson Bridge Park, but we couldn't service somebody off that line at the top of the hill, if that makes much sense. But in and around the developed areas, in and around Brooks, in and around the water treatment plant, in and around the transmission mains that travel, you know, out of Brooks along Highway 36, across to Dutchess and Patricia, Rosemary to Bassano, down out to Rainier, Scandia, and around to Rolling Hills. We do have some capacity, more specifically south on that Rainier, Scandia, Rolling Hills leg. There was a lot of extra capacity built into there for a possible subdivision and development on the south end of Lake Newell. So that transmission main does hold quite a bit of capacity, but like I say, it's very location dependent. And the time of development, if we had somebody come in, we'd have to go back to the drawing board and take all of these into consideration and have a development that, you know, wouldn't require that potable water service or that level of potable water service, or make sure it's situated in the right location. Adversely, you know, it would be at the developer's cost to do whatever upgrades, twinning, lines, whatnot, that would need to be done to do that. At the end of the first water project, we had everything built out, we had everything done. We ran a water CAD model. So we have very good information right now with the current system as to where the capacity is available and where development might fit. And that's something that we'd look at doing after the second phase is built out too, on the regional and the rural transmission mains.
Any other questions? Holly, please.
Hi, Jeff. A couple of questions for you. The first one is, how many parcels do we have from phase one that are vacant?
Sorry?
How many of the ones you put the curb stops in for phase one still haven't been connected? Is that quite a few?
Still haven't been connected. Okay, so there's two different things there. Still haven't been connected. Many people have services brought to their property where they do have a home or do have a business, but at this time have still chose not to connect. And I want to say, I haven't pulled the numbers in a while, and I hate to turn around and look at Jolene, but you probably know. We probably have, we're probably missing about 300 to 400 people that aren't connected to the water. Now, a vacant parcel is different. That's where somebody's brought it to a pivot corner, 7 acres, where, oh, maybe one day we'll build a house here. You know what I mean? And we didn't have a whole lot of those in the first phase, but we probably had 30 or 35 of those where that water still sits there. It still sits vacant, and it may never get built out. And you know, back in the original proposal, when we dropped that rate to $1,000, we still kept it at $7,000 for the vacant parcels, and that was to try to curb any of the prospecting. Like, you know, I'm going to bring it to every pivot corner that I own in hopes that, you know, maybe that'll be a little more valuable. We tried to curb that a little bit with having that at an increased rate. The other thing that's happened in a few areas, and most significantly down in the Rolling Hills, Hills area, yard sites are being pushed in so pivots can go all the way around and increasing farmable areas. So we've actually had people come in and go through the policy practice of removing that service. So it no longer exists there. And that's been done a few times, most specifically around the Rolling Hills area where some of that is going on.
So if those ones were not those, the ones that haven't been connected, people just haven't done it. You don't see that being a problem if everyone for some reason said, oh, now I want to, we have the capacity for that?
Yeah, the study was done as if everybody was connected.
Okay,
so all 1,549 or about that, plus these 732. Everybody was on, and not only that, but everybody is demanding water at the same time, because everybody here is probably quite familiar with the system. Very irregularly are people actually demanding water from the system, and I know from personal experience, every time I open my cistern, I lift the lid, the water's always touching my float ball, you know what I mean? So quite often, more often than not, it's shut off. When I use water, it demands it again, but the study was done as if all 1,549 plus 732 are all calling for water at the same time. And at that point, that's when our risk would be detrimental that, maybe we should consider some of these upgrades, but that's just not the case with the way the system's designed.
Okay, and then what was the actual cost to person in the first one? Because it really wasn't 1,000, the EID contributed, so what were we asking people to pay before the EID contributed?
We asked all assessed residences and commercial buildings to pay $1,000. The EID incentive, I believe, was $2,000 that would go back to the landowner once they hooked up. And in some cases, Alberta Agriculture runs some grants through their Growing Forward program for on-farm water management. And people were receiving up to 50% back of their installation costs from the curb stop to their cistern. So it wasn't unheard of that people would put $500 in their pocket and have water in their house when it was all said and done in the first round.
Okay, Matt, thank you.
I was just going to get a number for Councillor Johnson. It's 335 idle services.
Dan, please.
The one concern I had with moving forward with a new one was that we do all this work, plan it all out, and a whole bunch of people wouldn't sign up, and in 5-6 years we're planning a whole new phase. I don't want anything to do with planning a whole new phase. I'd like it to be done this time and done right. With these numbers you're throwing out, that includes everybody in the county. There would be no need to ever go back unless there was a whole huge pile of new developments. Is that right?
I would say that's fair, and that's going to be a little bit of the discussion that probably goes on here today, and who hooks up, and right now we're on how much and who. Really, we hope to solicit registrations from these 732 people and a handful more, as I mentioned, homes and businesses that have sprung up since we've done this. How do we make sure we never have to do this again? The $1 million question. There is a lot of things. We could look at. Let me back up a bit. I've done a lot of thinking about this in the last couple of months and trying to make sure I've got everything here that we need direction on to go forward. There's options, as we go forward to construction and we get a little further in the RFD. This is a very aggressive schedule, especially for everything that has to be done to get shovels in the ground by this fall when the crops are out of the ground. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done to make that happen. So the nice part about having everything kind of scattered throughout the county, it's different than the first project where the water line install was contiguous and we would jump on a plow and get going. We had 200 kilometers all in one area. This isn't going to be like that, It's going to be 100 meters here, 300 meters over there, 50 meters over here, dig up and put a curb stop right beside the line here. So the benefit we're going to have is we're going to be able to shape our contracts around who's registered quickly and at that time, and hopefully we can get some stuff out this fall. Now, the other option that I've thought long and hard about just to kind of meet this timeline that I put in here and that we're talking about today is maybe we look at designing it to service all 732, because the lion's share of the work is going to be in the crossing agreements, the oil and gas, the proximity agreements to install our line. That's what eats it up a lot. But the other thing that ties up a lot of time and can really stretch things out is easement acquisition. You know, we're not there yet, but I'm going to suggest that we do the same thing and we install lines. Everything here is assumed that these lines are installed on private property, and it's not quite, but almost half the price to install lines in private property as opposed to in the county road allowance. So that's a huge consideration as to, you know, what we see from the registration and where we decide we're actually going to go with the lines. In my experience, the last 5 years have been hectic with people calling in, asking me, you know, you can't go to the grocery store without somebody asking, when's this project happening, when's it happening? I'm really confident we are going to see a very positive registration campaign here. I can't say we'll see 732 because we won't, but would it be nice? Absolutely. I'm not sure how we curb the next time, other than being intrinsically clear that there are no plans to run an incentive program or a subsidized connection program in the future. This is where it ends.
So if we ran the pipe everywhere anyways, we do our registration, we get everyone to sign up, that's going to sign up. What if we ran the pipe to all the residences anyways or nearby? And then they can sign up later and there's not a whole lot of planning to be doing, just a hookup.
I've given that a lot of consideration, and I knew the conversation was going to come up, like, let's just bring it to 732 people. The biggest threat that I see in that is if, you know, say we get 700 people signed up or even 650, that last 32 or 82 people that we're trying to get the line to are going to be the most onerous, the most time consuming, because those are the people that don't want it. So they're for sure not going to sign an easement for you to come on their property. And trying to figure out how to combat that and get in there is tough, and it will be tough and onerous. Hopefully we haven't angered anybody too bad. The other threat here is that people who signed up in the first phase aren't going to allow us back on their property to service their neighbors either. You know, I don't see that as a big of a threat, because I think we did a good job in communication and keeping people happy, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of variables.
Can appreciate that. Neil, thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, do you have a cap? Like, for instance, let's say I'm 10 miles from the nearest water line and you're making this available to everybody. It's going to cost you through the roof to get out there. At $1,500, maybe you shouldn't do those kind of sites.
That's definitely a consideration. We never have had a cap. The original program was open to anybody.
That's right.
If you had a house or a business there, we would get you water for $1,000, and that was what it was. It worked pretty good, but 100%, you hit the nail right on the head. There are services that cost more than others. We typically talk in average cost per service. You know, when we report back on it and look at it, because it is a community project. But if you look in the cost and funding sources, this doesn't give distances in the report, it does, but the last column there is maximum service cost. So under these 6 registrations that we've taken a look at, and we've taken a look at the longest run we would have to get to without servicing anybody else from an existing main line. And you can see Bassano Gem Rosemary has a $125,000 service. Patricia Duchess has a $245,000 service. So there are definitely some outlying services that could be ran, and the funding on that is definitely open for consideration, knowing that the study did take into account running services to those people at that cost.
And how many people would you say you've talked to, like your interest level right now? Have you already got a list started, or you're just getting into that?
I've definitely got a running list, and we've had lots of people come in and request quotes. Most recently, with the onslaught of people, hearing what's going on in the media and whatever else, and where the state of the project is, we've been pushing the message. Just wait. You're going to hear about it. We need to talk to council. We haven't been collecting names. We haven't been doing anything, but the response has been high. We hear about it almost daily. For a little while there, I was fielding 2 and 3 calls a day from people asking, where can I sign up? Where can I drop my money off? So I do suspect that even a lot of people that were against the concept of it in the initial phase back in 2010, 2011 have had their eyes opened a little bit, and maybe their minds changed in talking to some of their neighbors and the peace of mind that it provides.
Thanks.
Regarding the funding, now there is a bit over 400 million that wasn't unspent allocation. Now, does this mean we have that in the bank, Matt?
That $4 million just showed up earlier this week. Yeah, that $4 million is ready to be spent on the project.
And another question. I see there's sometimes 2 dwellings on the same parcel of land. Let's say one has already received it for $1,000 to the curb stop. Would that other dwelling be able to get it for $1,500, or do they have to pay the $7,700?
That is the recommendation and how the report was framed, that in any habitable dwelling that is not serviced would be available to be serviced in here. So I think off the top of my head, Constantine did a little bit of leafing around for me in the GIS system, and I think there's about 30 or 32 locations where there is a second dwelling on, where the first dwelling is serviced, but the second one's not. So the recommendation through this RFD and in here would be that they would be eligible for the $1,500. But again, that is totally the direction that we're looking for. So when people come in for this registration campaign, we can answer their questions and answer them accurately and get them on their way.
If I may, for one more second. So I do know that people that have farms, they would qualify for, at that time, for the EID's $2,000 grant. Acreage holders did not. One other thing. Why is it that much more cost effective to go through private land to put the lines in versus the county's right of ways?
For the most part, well, the whole part, it's first and foremost ease of access. The terrain in the road allowance is not lending itself well to digging holes and putting drills and setting them up and so on and so forth. You can't plow in the county ditch that deep. We can't plow into the side slopes and at the bottom of the ditch. TELUS can accommodate it sometimes at their depths, but not as deep as we need to plow water lines. And lastly, it's the other utilities in the right-of-way. The Fortises, the TELUSes, the ATCOs, the gas co-ops that you're ducking and weaving in and out, whereas when you get on private land, you have a little bit more flexibility to get in and around stuff like that.
Keep watching that light. I don't know if it's on or off. Because of other scheduled meetings that we have today, Jeff, I'm going to ask if you'd come back later on in the meeting and we pick this up at that point. I don't want to rush this discussion because I think it is of some gravity for us. So thank you for coming in, and we'll carry on later in the day if you're willing to do that. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. At this point, we'll go to our scheduled meeting with Brooks and Bassano RCMP. And welcome Staff Sergeant Gord Yetman and Corporal Josh Argue from Brooks and Bassano, respectively. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming to report and discuss with us today.
Good morning, Reeve and Council. It's good to be back again. So what I'm going to do today is I will kind of walk you through the last quarter, okay, for our detachment. I'll give you some stats and I'll mention some of our more notable files that we've investigated.
That sounds good. Just for information, I'm sure we can complete this in a half hour or so. We have another meeting at 11:30. So to council, I'm going to suggest that we receive the reports and then that we have questions afterwards, because I expect some of our questions will be answered in the fullness of your report as well. So that's for our information as much as anything. Thank you.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I'll just get right into it here. So from October 1st to December 31st, 2021, Brooks Detachment members responded to 481 rural calls for service. Detachment members issued a total of 176 violation tickets in the rural area. A total of 63 prisoners were lodged in detachment cells, and we conducted 138 provincial criminal record checks. Some significant events that occurred file-wise, November the 4th, Brooks members responded to a complaint of a found firearm at a business located in the county of Newell. Upon arrival, members were informed that the complainant had located something strapped to the bottom of their vehicle. Upon further examination, it turned out that what was strapped under the vehicle was indeed a loaded sawed-off shotgun in a case. The owner had no idea that it was there or even where it would have come from. The firearm was seized by our members, and we involved some specialized support services to kind of help us determine maybe where that firearm had come from and whatnot. So we called them in to assist with the investigation. That's currently ongoing still. So kind of an odd one, not one you see very often. So normally the person with the vehicle knows that the thing is under there, and in this case they didn't. So again, October 1st to December 31st, Brooks members attended to a total of 7 calls under the Mental Health Act. All calls were resolved without incident. October 1st to December 31st as well, Brooks members conducted 3 well-being checks out in the county. All of these calls were resolved without incident. Staffing levels, our detachment is almost to full complement. October, November 2021 saw 6 new members arrive at the detachment. Of the 6, 2 were experienced officers that had transferred over from municipal police services to the RCMP. 3 were experienced RCMP members, and 1 new member came to us from right out of depot. So it was kind of an exciting period for us. We had some good experience come to the detachment. So we'll just go through the infographic here really quick. So this is the crime gauge. So it's a comparison January to December 2021 versus the same period in 2020. So persons crimes were up, saw a 64% increase. That's for the entire year. Property crime, 15% decrease, and other criminal code files, 22% decrease. So we saw a very, very modest increase of 1% total criminal code offenses. Property crime, we saw a 51% decrease in break and enters. Theft of motor vehicles were up. That's something our detachment is currently working on. 11% decrease in theft under 5,000. So we had 4 fewer instances there. So that's kind of a snapshot of the year. You've also been provided with crime statistics that cover the past quarter. For the ease of speeding this up, I could just ask if you've had a chance to read those stats, is there anything that stands out that you would like to ask questions on?
Are there any questions? I noticed that a couple of the more pertinent issues are mental health and well-being types of challenges, which I think we can understand in the current situation, but I think it highlights where we're at in our time in history. Eh?
Yeah, and you know, we have, we have seen an increase in mental health act calls, and you know, our members are very well trained in de-escalation, and I'm happy to say that our mental health act calls and our well-being checks, more often than not, are resolved without incident. So it's kind of a nice way to have things, actually. Yeah, so did you want me to go through the stats one by one, or did you, if you've had time to?
I've had time, I took a look at them recently. What's council's wish? Do you want to go through? I mean, if you want to take a quick run through them,
Sure.
we're good with that. I think that's, appreciate your
I can go
time.
through. I can go through them pretty
Yeah,
quick.
Dan, you had a question first?
Well, you asked us if anything stands out to us. What stands out to you? Maybe if you can just go through and highlight what stood out to you guys when you see it, rather than each individual item. I think that would take a long time.
Yeah, for sure. So what I've got here at the end is a set of stats, and our crime analysts have actually identified some issues on there. So that's probably the best way to present it. So theft of motor vehicle is an issue that we're currently tracking, not only in the county, but also in the city of Brooks as well. With it being such a fluid and ongoing issue, I can't really go into too much detail as to where our investigations are at or anything like this. But I can tell you that it is something that we're alive to, and we're tracking that issue very closely. Break and enter was identified as an issue only because there were none last year, none the year before. This is cottage or seasonal residents, and we had one this year. So the analysts said, well, that's an issue this year. And again, you can see it kind of bolsters what we were just talking about, well-being checks and mental health. It's definitely an emerging issue, everybody's mental health, as the pandemic drags on. Hopefully, we'll see light at the end of the tunnel here in the not so distant future, but it's definitely something that we're keenly aware of. Roadside suspensions, alcohol related, that's an issue. The number is at 68. That is attributable to different things. One of them being the mandatory alcohol screening. So now when a member pulls over a vehicle, we do mandatory alcohol screening. So you walk up and it's basically it's a demand to provide a sample of your breath. And that is mandatory with every traffic stop. Oh, really? So, yeah. So, and that would account for such a high number because we're testing more people, which means that you're going to get more warnings, more failures, and whatnot. So that's the notable points for statistics, and that's the ones that are tracking high are the ones that have been identified as issues. So that's what we'll be focusing on here.
Thank you. That's good. Any other questions? That's the completion of your report, is that?
That's all I've got for you today.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
We'll go to Constable Argy's report for the Bassano detachment.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to come in here today and speak, Reeve, council, and staff. So I guess I'll start out with introducing myself. So I'm Corporal Josh Argue. I'm the interim commander in Bassano with Corporal Sebastian's departure to now Sergeant Sebastian in Spiritwood, Saskatchewan. I have stepped in there to hopefully try and fill his shoes as best as possible in the interim for now. Staffing-wise at the Bassano detachment, we are at full complement with a corporal, 3 constables, and our public service employee. One of the experienced members, Constable Andre Bassano, has received his transfer notice, and he'll be leaving us to go to Leduc Integrated Traffic Unit. As it stands right now, his last shift is going to be March 30th. And we do have a recruit that is slotted to graduate depot on February 28th, pending no issues. And he'll probably start with us here that first week, within about 10 days of that date in the early part of March. So we should have close to a full month of overlap where we'll have an extra member, which will be greatly appreciated by the guys on the road there. If we head through to the report, I can talk about some notable things, and like we did with Staff Yetman here, if there's any issues, please, or any questions, just fire them my way, and I'll do my best to give an answer. I'm rounding out my second week in Bassano. It's been an enjoyable experience so far.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's definitely different going from a larger detachments like Brooks, and I did spend 5 years in Medicine Hat Police Service before coming back to the RCMP, back to Brooks. So my whole experience is either medium or larger city policing, 24 hours, and now that I'm in the very, very much smaller detachment, it's an eye-opener to some of the differences, I guess, and it's been a good learning experience so far in these first 2 weeks. So if we head into our community engagement, as that was noted as one of the main priorities for the Bassano detachment, I'm going to touch upon some of the amazing work the members did in the schools. I don't know if you've seen any of the news coverage regarding the forensics class work that we did, community policing is a passion of mine, as well as school resource officer work, and I can say I've never even seen a program actually go to these lengths. That when they talk about forensics, they did a mock investigation in GEM, where they went in and they actually were able to, grab statements, do things like grab fingerprints, and then show the comparison of fingerprints. And then that was just taking it to the next level when they discussed impaired driving. We actually had a member show, providing a breath sample with 0 alcohol in their system. And then we got permission for this one, but then a member took 2 shots, so 2 ounces of alcohol, and then gave another breath sample just to show the difference in real time, in real world, how that affects the body as well as the samples provided. But the biggest one that I found is when we brought them into the detachment, Constable Tattern actually had contacted the blood spatter experts in the RCMP as part of the forensic identification unit, and they actually sent him like workbook sheet of things to do, as well as several pints of bovine blood. And what they did is they soaked different objects in this blood and then hit them with different objects, such as like a hammer, to show blood spatter, and then discuss some of that. I know it's very morbid, but it's actually quite fascinating when you see it. Another thing they would do is they took like tennis balls or different things of fruit, soaked it in the blood, and would throw it at the walls to just, would show high velocity impact of something hitting a bloody object, hitting something at a different impact, different angles, and then they could show that scientific reasoning behind the blood spatter, what it actually represents. And if you go and you look at the pictures, you can tell the kids had a blast. And I know that for the next 40, 50, 60 years, they'll definitely, whenever they talk about school and some of the fun trips they had, they're going to talk about the day they got to hit bloody objects around in the RCMP detachment cell bay.
There are grandkids talking about that.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you're able they're able to experience that, because that is pretty cool. And I know that wherever I do end up in our career paths here, that this is a project that I hopefully will definitely take with me. So on the front of that, we are continuing with the live communications, whether it's through getting Kendra Sieben, the Safe Communities Facilitator, out to the Bassano detachment to do whether it's a TikTok live show where we sit there and we have instant interaction with people literally all around the globe. And it's that modernizing or digitizing of foot patrol, those tried, tested, and true methods of policing, community policing. We're just digitizing that into the modern world and doing it online as well as in person. It's actually what we found is it's received extremely well, because again, it gives the people that face-to-face time or pseudo face-to-face time on a screen to ask a question that they maybe didn't feel important enough to come to a police station and ask a police officer, but now they can just have a really quick one in the comments section. So we're continuing with that, and that's been a wonderful program, as well as the reading program and the Bassano crime tips that Sergeant Andrews did quite well at. That'll be continued on. So for the months of October and November, they did 3 reading sessions, as well as 3 presentations on rural crime prevention. During the Halloween rush, they're also able to head out to the various communities that we police and service in Bassano to hand out candy. And with the rural crime strategy, this was actually pretty amazing too, as they are able to go out and speak to every resident in their detachment area. So they ended up speaking or attending 1,600 houses, which is a pretty monumentous feat, and honestly something that I think is amazing and would like to see continued as well with that rural engagement. One of the things that Sergeant Andrews had identified were hotspots and night patrols as some issues about getting out into the county. So as you can see, we've have done quite a few of those. The stats for their night patrols and hotspot patrols. So for the months of October, November, and September, they're able to do 143. And if you do look at it, it has them listed as RBGH, so Rosemary, Bassano, Gem, and Hussar. So it's just our way of tracking that we are out there, and we want people to know, and not just see us during the daytime as well. I always like to say, when any of my time, I prefer driving in a marked police unit, so that if someone happened to be up and look out their window and they see a police car driving down their street, they know the police are in their area, as opposed to just another black truck or a brown truck or whatever it might be. And this is just our way of also getting out there so that people do see us. And we encourage our members that once we go out to Hussar, like, you're already out there, let's get out and go for a walk, or same with if you're out in Gem, and in Rosemary, and you know, get out of your police car and go and talk to whatever resident that you happen to see, or a kid playing in the street, right? Go and every opportunity is an opportunity for us to build on a relationship, right? And that's one of the things that we try and impart on our newer members. During those 3 months, we also checked 110 vehicles for sobriety, much like Staff Yetman had explained with the mandatory alcohol screening demand. If we pull someone over, they have to provide a breath sample if we read that demand to them, and it is a criminal offense to not provide that. So out of those 3 months, we did find one impaired driver, and so that brings us up to a grand total of 10 impaireds year to date in the Bassano detachment area. And then if you head over to the, there's a page and a bit regarding just the occurrences that we have responded to in the October, November, as well as compared to October, November of 2020, and then the year to date. And there's not a large discrepancy much between the two of them. I mean, I'm open to any questions about that, but I will say a total call for service for those 2 months was 164, which compared to last year of 145 is not a large increase. You know, taking into consideration everything that is going on in the world these days, and that brings us up to a year to date of 667 calls for service for the fiscal year for the Bassano detachment. And that is the report as I presented. I'm open to any questions that I can try and help with. Granted, I've only been here for 2 weeks, so in this role, I'll do my best, and if I can't come up to an answer now, I'll get it and send it in.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none,
Perfect.
thank you for those reports. We appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you, Ruth.
I'm going to suggest that we take a recess till public hearings in 10 minutes. Council, seeing that it is very close to 11:30, I will entertain a motion that we move to a public hearing. Councillor Unruh, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our guests this morning who've come to attend this public hearing. I'll call this public hearing to order and will provide a brief outline for the formal hearing process. The purpose for this public hearing is to ensure there is an orderly process for council to receive input from everyone who wishes to be heard. After my comments, the time will be turned over to our administrative staff, our Director of Corporate Services, for an overview of the matter being considered during this hearing. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to address and be questioned by council. Others who wish to address council will also be given an opportunity to provide comments, hearing first from those speaking in support, then in opposition to the application. And council may question presenters if they feel a need for clarification. We ask that comments be brief and limited to 5 minutes for the applicant and 3 minutes for others who wish to address council. Any individual wishing to speak must first be recognized by the chair, myself. Once recognized, please state your name, and all statements should be directed to council. After council has heard from those who wish to submit comments, the applicant will be given a brief opportunity to respond to the issues raised. The hearing will then be adjourned and council will consider input provided when the matter is next dealt with by council. So welcome here everyone this morning. I'm going to suggest that we'll begin with introductions and begin with council. So I'll ask Councillor Kopp to introduce herself and we'll just do quick introductions, please.
Hi, Division 3 Councillor Lynette Kopp.
Good morning, Dan Short, Division 1.
Good morning, Nadina Scandrop, Division 2, Tilly area.
Good morning, Holly Johnson, Division 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Welcome, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, I'm Arno Dirksen from the GEM area.
Good morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from the west side of the county.
Good morning, Greg Screever, Lake No Resort and Castles.
Good morning. I'm Ellen Unruh, and I represent the countryside around the village of Rosemary.
Good morning. Amanda Philpott, Duchess, Division 8.
Neil Johnson, Division 10, Brooks.
Hi there, Lane Johnson, the Director of Corporate Services.
Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin.
Also on Life Size, Kelly Rasmussen.
Right, and we have introductions from Life Size from online this afternoon. Kelly Rasmussen, Bill Endersby, and Connor Anker.
Connell Archer.
Connell Archer. I'm sorry, I can't read that far. I'm looking across the room here, and my glasses don't do me any good. So. I'll invite Lane Johnson to give us an overview of the situation we're considering today, please.
Thank you, Reeve Dirksen. The public hearing today is for the proposed removal of the municipal reserve designation on a portion of a county-owned municipal reserve parcel. That reserve parcel is adjacent to a privately owned property. The public hearing is being held in accordance with sections 230, 606, 674, and 675 of the Municipal Government Act. One thing to note, that this hearing is not a hearing regarding the proposed development for the adjacent lot. This particular public hearing is not a planning and development hearing, so important distinction. A couple of things to lay out for council. When a development is taking place, an adopted area structure plan is the guiding document that lays out from the beginning how a development should proceed. Some minor revisions in those area structure plans can occur, but the main uses and the areas identified for those uses should conform to the area structure plan. As pointed out in some of the submissions that the county has received, the municipal reserve parcel has not been actively maintained in the past. The area structure plan document actually places responsibility for the maintenance of the areas of municipal reserves on homeowner associations within Lake Newell Resort. Also, the area structure plan identifies the property to the west as a future storage facility. So that's in the area structure plan document that was adopted right at the outset for this particular development. So just wanting to lay that out for a foundation for the hearing as we proceed with the discussion this morning. Through the subdivision process, the county acquired the municipal reserve parcel that is on the map. Some feedback has been submitted and raised regarding the requirement for the county to retain ownership of at least 10% of the developed area through the dedication of the municipal reserve. Now, when municipal reserve requirements are set out in the Municipal Government Act, it can be addressed through the dedication of land equal to 10% of the developable area, or it can be provided through cash that the developer provides in lieu of land. Once it's provided in the form of land, council has the opportunity to develop the municipal reserve, to just retain it as it is, or it could even go through this process that would actually provide for the removal of the municipal reserve and an alternative use to be made of that land. Any funds that are generated through this process, if in fact it goes through and the land is then subsequently sold, those funds would be retained by the county, placed in a dedicated recreation reserve account, and funds would be available for recreation purposes to fund recreation initiatives going forward in the future. So that particular comment addresses some of the points that were raised in the feedback that has been provided as well. I'll refer council to the feedback that has been submitted. There's a number of responses that have been provided by the public. All of that information is in your agenda package and has been made available to council. I can attempt to address any questions that council may have with regards to the public hearing, the details that are before you today. I know that the owner of the lot to the west is also present and anticipates providing some information for council. Plus, we also have some support from planning and development staff if there is some questions that relate to the area structure plan itself and or uses that would be acceptable. If you have any questions, I can attempt to answer those at this time.
Okay, thank you, Lane, and I appreciate the detail that you've provided for council in the written presentation. It's very helpful, and I've read that along with the submissions that have come. So that's we appreciate that. Are there any questions for Lane at this point? Councillor Chrisman and then Councillor Screever.
Morning, Lane. What is the size of the rectangular property? I know it's 0.39 acres, but it looks like it's fairly deep and narrow. So what is that 40 feet by 200 feet? What is that strip?
The width of it is 12 meters.
12 meters. Oh, yeah.
Basically 40 feet. Yeah.
12 meters by?
Well, I would have to do the calculation to determine, but it's 0.39 acres, so it's just the 12 feet.
I just wanted to get some perspective.
Sorry, 40 feet wide, 12 meters wide is what it is.
12, yeah, 40, okay. And
so Lane, the funds that would be generated from the sale of that land, would that be qualified for trees and beautification of the remaining reserve land? Does that qualify within the recreation type of status?
Anything that would qualify as recreation initiatives, those funds could be made available for. If it's to upgrade a park facility, if it's to upgrade a reserve parcel, yes, those funds could be made available for that purpose.
So if the funds were available and let's say there's funds that are put a couple rows of trees in or something like that, would that qualify then? Even though it's not a park, it's a reserve right now? Would that qualify even though there's no playground there or grass or something like that? Would that?
It is a municipal reserve parcel. It could be developed as a park or a passive recreation area. It could certainly be, it would qualify for that.
Councillor Scandrick, please.
So Lane, there was in the letters that were submitted, there was a lot of talk about how the piece of land isn't well kept. And so am I understanding correctly what you said, the homeowners association is supposed to be looking after it, or was the county supposed to be looking after it?
I refer back to the area structure plan document. The area structure plan says that any reserved parcels are the responsibility of the homeowners associations for the development. There have been a few that have been developed and they are nicely maintained. But no, the county has not been involved in actively maintaining the vegetation on this property.
Greg and then Ellen, please.
So Lane, I don't know if this is a question for you or not, but I know there's a ditch that runs down kind of the middle of the remaining portion that would remain if the sale went through. Would there be enough room? I know that ditch would need to be cleaned out from time to time. It has a drainage ditch. Now, would there be enough room for trees on the west side of that spot of that ditch? Would there be enough room for trees and the like, and enough room to actually clean out the ditch?
The area to the west of the ditch that has been identified for retention by the county is intended to make sure that there is space to get equipment in there. I anticipate that we would probably be short of what would be required if there's plans to put a shelter belt along the west side of that property and still have equipment access parallel to the ditch.
Okay, thank you. Ellen, please.
So that was exactly the question I was going to ask. But so then basically the neighborhood will not have any screening at all between the designated place for, for the construction of a storage facility. So there is no room then for trees at all. If this piece of land was supposed to go towards if we sell it, then there's really not much room there, is there?
The type of screening that might be required of a development in the future, and again, this is not a hearing for the development, but conditions can be applied to a future application that would require screening of an acceptable form. Screening could be in the form of a fence, a non-see-through fence. It could be a shelter belt. There could be any number of screen options that could be attached as a condition for a future development permit. It doesn't have to necessarily be limited to a row of trees that take up space.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're going to move ahead with the hearing now from the public. So we'll begin with a 5-minute presentation by the applicants who are present with us here. If you would take your seats and begin by introducing yourselves, and then you have 5 minutes for a presentation, please. Thank you for that, Wayne.
Good morning. Thank you, Council, for giving us the opportunity to present our case. My name is Terry Malott, born and raised Albertan. I've been a member and a principal in Kemco Group of Companies. We're very interested in developing properties and doing business within Alberta, like the motto of the county says, open to build and foster community and develop and enhance businesses.
Morning, councillors. My name is Eric Hugel. Along with Terry, my wife is also involved in this. Her name is Amanda Hugel. I grew up in Brooks. I've been in Brooks my whole life. I recently moved out to Lake Newell Resort. I've been there for a little while. Both my wife and I are teachers in Brooks. I've been teaching for 13 years and my wife has been teaching for 9. So we have made Brooks home. And we live at White Pelican Way, just a couple doors down from where this potential storage lot would be.
So our vision started way back in June 24th, of which everybody's seen the article that Ritchie Brothers had sent out of all the, this lot was auctioned off. This land was a part of the Newell Resort Plan in 2005, of which I don't know what happened, but nothing has been done there since 2005. So we went around the community. Eric's a part of the community. My daughter, who is Eric's wife, is part of the community. We looked around and said, you know, this is a beautiful place. It is a wonderful place to live, wonderful place, hopefully, that they're going to raise their family. So we looked around and said, hey, this is a unique opportunity. We've seen the storage lot. We went to the marina where Eric has a slip and has his boat, and we said, what does the community need? What could we do to enhance the community and be part of it? One of the things we looked and said, hey, here's a storage lot that's up for auction, and we think that there's an opportunity that meets the need of the marina to have a storage lot. So we looked at it, and we bought the storage lot, fully understanding it's an unserviced, there's no power, there's no water, but there is a storage facility designation for this lot. We looked at it and thought, hey, there's an opportunity here. What can we do to enhance the opportunity? We then, one of the first things we did is cut the grass. We rented a machine, cut the grass, not only ours, but the county's as well. We realized then that there's quite a substantial piece of property between our property and the storage ditch. We then worked with Maria, and I have to acknowledge the county has been very exceptional in pointing us in the right direction of the proper procedures to do what we need to do. We then made a presentation to the county about possibly buying a portion of that land in our vision to develop this property. Part of our vision was to have an enclosed storage. We're not just going to have a little storage where everybody gets to dump their ice fishing shacks and everything else. We're proposed building a building right along the property. So the rectangular section that you see there is where we are going to put our building. We went and had local people here. We went to Norseman Metal. We got a quote. We had Cam Christensen do our surveying. We had a local appraiser do an appraisal of the property for the county. That was one of their requisitions. You can see here some of our buildings. He can put the sketch up on the drawing. So that's a three-dimensional view of what we're proposing. They are going to be lockable, individual storage bays. There we go. Lockable individual storage bays for people to park their boats indoors. There's the side view of the building. So our vision would be to have the building right up against the back of where the property line is. We would not have it would be metal building. I have some sample colors here, which we went around the community and said, what is going to be aesthetically pleasing to the community? I mean, it's not going to be pink and purple or anything like that. It's going to be nice sand, and, you know, the name that we've chosen, we've registered a company as Sandpiper Storage in the Sandpiper part of the community. It's a legal entity. Everything's been done appropriately. We have a storage drawing here of how the building is going to situate on the property. We have made provisions for some gates for people to, you know, so it's going to be locked storage. You can see the building with the bays at the back. The provision of the additional land makes it feasible to have this storage facility. Without that, I mean, there's only 1 acre left. It's not that big of a storage lot. I mean, having no power, no sewage, no water, no nothing. This is what, in the area structure plan, that it was zoned for. Now, we drive into the community. There is another storage lot. We understand that. We're looking at a different type of storage lot that is aesthetically pleasing, something that looks nice. We think that people will come from the marina with their boats and be able to park inside. They can take their winter tires, their bicycles, their lawnmowers, and everything else, and have it inside their lockable storage. Outside that, yes, we are going to have places to park RVs, but it's going to be behind the fence.
Yeah. Sorry. And just, I have to say, as a resident of the resort, you know, we do have another storage lot out there. That is not what our intention is. We're talking a large investment in a building. As a boat owner myself, having an indoor storage, that's close to home, I think is of great value to not only the residents out there, but just to the community in general. In terms of finding storage that's reasonable, And our intention is not to have it heated, keeps the price down. But I've had to drive my boat personally to another city to have it stored in a facility. So this allows us to have something that's, as Terry has said, aesthetically pleasing, fits in with the community, and I think adds value to our community with this development.
We did have several discussions with the county about, we originally tried to buy additional land, like closer to the ditch. The county came back and said, based on their recommendations, they needed that land to be able to maintain it. We did talk about planting trees, right along the edge of the property line, and the comment was about, don't know if the soil conditions work that well for the trees. I said, well, that's something that we would look at exploring. But we're trying to make something that the community, when they drive by, it looks like it's going to be. I mean, we're going to be raising a family there in the community right beside there. So it's not something that we're coming in from some other area and just, to make a whole bunch of money and move on. I mean, we look around the community at how many empty lots there are, substantial amount of empty lots. We think this will help maybe add some intent for people to see that there's an opportunity to increase the value, not decrease the value.
Thank you. Is that your presentation?
Yes, we welcome any questions that anybody might have.
Yeah, if there's questions from council to begin with, Neil first, please.
Yeah, just one. Did you say without the municipal reserve, this project doesn't work?
Yeah, with the size of the lot, the building takes up too much of the lot. So right now it's 12 meters wide by 153 meters long, the piece of property that we're buying. The building is 30 feet deep, so it pretty much is going to take that whole parcel of the property and leave the remaining part for having the ability to turn around. And I mean, you have a boat with a truck, and you got to drive in, and you got to have it, be able to move around and everything like that. I mean, we're looking at it from a standpoint, if somebody has a boat in the marina, and these, as everybody knows, some of these boats get very expensive nowadays. If it's going to be a big storm, I know what I'd be doing. I'd be taking my boat on my trailer out of the marina and parking it in a building. I don't have to worry about taking the life jackets out. I don't have to worry about anything. I just park it indoors. We've taken, the colors of the building to match the community. We think it's going to be an area that people are going to want. Future development down the road, maybe an additional building on the east side. It could be, but right now we're looking at, without having the land, and we're thinking that ditch that's there and be able to plant trees and keep it so that it's functional, it will be maintainable, and it'll be something that is aesthetic to the eyes to look at.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Ellen, please.
I was a little confused about where are the RVs going to be parked?
They're going to be inside, and then the remainder of the lot to the west, up against the fence. As you can see, it's a curved property that follows the road. So if there's anybody that has a trailer, there's not a lot of room, so it's not going to be that filled up. It'll be parked up against the fence. But then the other, inside those bays, they'll be able to park in there.
Okay, thank you. Dan, please.
What's the height on that building?
It's going to be 16 feet, so at the very peak of the building, it'll be 20 feet.
Okay, just, Lane, can you point which is north on that drawing again? Just for a bearing. North is the top of the page? Yeah. So
yes, north is the top of the page.
Right. You're proposing your building to be on the east side of the property.
Correct.
Okay.
Right along the property line.
Right. Further questions? Holly, please.
Hi, two quick questions. What is the size of the bays? And then what is if you're talking about fence, so what kind of fence are you talking about? Well, you're not putting it where your storage building is, you're not fencing, but everything else you will fence. What kind of fence would that be?
It'll be a chain link fence, and we're looking at right now whether we're going to have, the funds to be able to put those fiberglass slats in there to hide it. I mean, we know right now the existing storage facility has a chain link fence. We would look at putting something similar to that with barbed wires at the top for security, and then a lockable gate.
Thank you.
Sorry, the size of the bay.
The bays are 30 feet deep, 14 feet wide, lockable with an overhead door.
Okay, Greg, please, thank you.
So does that building, does it run but right up against the property line?
Yes, if we would look at having a zero lot line, that'll be right on the property line. We don't see the advantage of having a setback from anything being there. I mean, there's nothing would go in between there.
Is your drawing to scale?
Yes.
So where is the new property, the property you're proposing to purchase would start where on that drawing?
Right there. That's the whole, pretty much the whole building is the property that we're buying.
Okay, so it's about, yeah, okay, you said 30 feet, so
So the
it's about a
building's
40
30 feet, and then
10
we're buying
feet out
12
front.
meters, right.
Okay, so without the new property, without the purchased property, your vision would simply have to move further
Yeah,
west.
then it's not feasible, because you wouldn't have the ability to turn and to have any other storage.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That is, that drawing, the picture is to scale?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so moving that building forward without the additional land doesn't provide any room for any other storage?
Great, that's the issue.
Yes.
It doesn't get in the way of your building, but it would get in the way of what you envision to be other storage capacities.
Yes, so making it-
To be clear, that's the situation, right? Okay, thank you. Neil, please. Any other questions? We'll take, Neil, please.
What was your business plan when you went to auction and purchased it? Like, you still knew the municipal reserve was there. It's a bit of a gamble to buy the property and need the reserve to make it feasible.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate way is, I mean, I guess in the end of the day, if we don't get to be able to buy this municipal reserve, we can just take and not build a fence. We can just go to the county and say, we want to put a development for a garage, and we'll park our boat in our garage and not develop it at all and leave it the way it is. So we're sitting there saying, no, we want to make the community better, not just do what's happened since 2005. I mean, just leave it. I mean, the first week that we bought it, we got an email saying, hey, it's your responsibility to cut the grass. So we went and cut the grass and did some roundup for the weeds and everything else, saying we're trying to make it better, not trying to leave it the way it is. We didn't know whose responsibility it was, but I know when we started cutting, we couldn't stop at our property line and leave the counties like that. So we cut it all the way to the ditch.
And just further to your question, as we, our intention was to build a storage lot, and as we kind of started to explore a little more, we, see the need for an indoor storage. So that just kind of came about from discussions about what we wanted to do with the land. And again, given that I am also a resident out there, having a building that's more aesthetically pleasing than just a storage lot was something that we were both in favor of. So it kind of came about just through discussions and plans of what we wanted to do.
One of the other things that we talked about is we know how much we pay taxes on the existing lot that we have. And we know by adding a building and everything, we're going to be paying more taxes to the county. We're going to be enhancing the community. That's what we were looking at. And that's why, I again applaud all the work that the county has done with us up to date. I mean, they were very forthcoming and saying, hey, this is what you need to do. I mean, they guided us all the way along to this point here, saying that, we have to have the public hearing. We paid for the surveying. We paid for the appraisal. We paid for the notifications that go out so that we can have this hearing, and so that, the sign that was going up, we paid for. So we're bringing this revenue into the community, hopefully, and helping to enhance it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Dan, and then...
If this didn't go through, does that destroy your plans? Is it a deal breaker for you, or will you still proceed with the business on this lot if the sale does not go through?
We would have to give it some thought, but right now, the financial feasibility to build a building on the remainder of the land, I don't think it's viable. It's a substantial investment by building a building of this size. I mean, we drove around the rest of, the county and looked around at how many properties are sitting empty and vacant and for sale and everything, and we're trying to enhance and put money into it to help build it up. We think that with this investment, it'll help sell some of the other lots, and perhaps people might want to build where they see some positive growth.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Johnson, please.
You had mentioned that you'd been, as I understood it, talking to the community. So have you been getting some positive feedback?
We have not gone to talk to the community. We talked to the county. And, you know, I have no problem. Maria has helped us out, you know, not telling us what to do, but giving us the direction of what needs to be done. And, you know, she was very upfront in telling us, hey, you have to go through this. It's municipal reserve land. This is the hearing that has to be done. This is what you need to do. And so, you know, we applaud them for doing that. And, you know, like I said, when we come into the county office and it says, you know, they want to be positive and look at that, we're trying to do everything that we can to meet that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, at this point we'll move to, are there anybody came to speak in favor of this proposal? Any other presentations in favor? If not, we will move to the next part of our hearing, which is people speaking, raising concerns with regard to this proposal. And if you'll stay, there may be some more questions at the end, but we'll ask people to speak with concerns or in opposition to this proposal to who's going to be first this morning?
My name is Connell Archer. I'm happy to present. Oh, somebody's walking up.
We'll take the person that started to talk from the electronic connection, and in the meantime, we'll set up for someone to present on the floor here as well. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Connell Archer. I've been traveling to and from Calgary to the Lake Newell area for holidays for the last 25 years, and a member of the sailing club out there. And then I decided to build a house here this spring. So I purchased a lot in Sandpiper Estates. That's 31 Sandpiper Estates Road. My wife and I plan to move in there in the spring. So the reason why I'm objecting to the proposal is you know, I see that making that storage facility larger will not enhance the property values in Sandpiper Estates, and may potentially actually prevent people from building on the lots, especially the ones that back west onto that storage facility area. Those lots have recently been sold, and I don't think people will be interested in building on them if they walk out their back door or they look out their back window and see a storage facility, as opposed to some prairie land and some houses that they would see in the community on the other side of the road. So my concern is primarily, you have all read my my letter, but you know, and at that time I didn't know that they were going to be placing buildings, or the proposal was that buildings were going to go on there. I don't know that that's going to really enhance property values. So I guess my big concern is that it's difficult to have homes built. It's been a long time since a house has been built in Sandpiper Estates. I think my house is the first in 10 years to be built on there, and I'm afraid that the building, people are just not going to want to build there, and they'll go elsewhere. So in saying that, if people you know, have this facility there, it may be handy for some people, but for the most part, I think it's going to reduce the property values in Sandpiper Estates, and subsequently the potential property tax revenue for the county. And, you know, I'm investing quite a bit of money. Everybody does, especially during the pandemic here. It costs quite a bit of money to build a house, especially when I'm bringing resources from elsewhere. And I just don't want to lose any property value on that house. And when I walk out into my backyard, if I'm going to look west, you know, I'm happy to look at the beautiful community and the houses out in that area, but seeing a storage facility sitting there that's larger now based on the sale of this municipal reserve area, looking at that every day, for the next 10 or 15, 20 years that I decide to live there, is not something that we want. And I believe that something like that would be an eyesore. And I don't believe the county should be helping a corporation or a small corporation or a business enterprise make it larger when that land could be, I think, better used in another way. And I think that the 6 properties that are sitting there backing west, if those houses were built, I think that the county would reap a fairly significant value in terms of property tax revenue, as opposed to the little bit of extra that they're going to be able to charge the company that's building there. I think that's pretty much my concern, is the devaluation of the land and the properties there, based on having essentially a commercial or a larger commercial or industrial looking building right in the middle of a community. I think that would be my submission.
Thank you. Are there questions for the presenter? If not, I'll invite someone to come from the floor here to make a presentation. Please introduce yourself as well at the outset. Right, sure, okay.
Good morning, County Councillors, staff and neighbours. Thank you for holding this public meeting and allowing us to bring our concerns forward. My name is Thelma Grobbelaar. My husband Jacobus cannot attend today because of a busy work schedule. We've lived at Lake Newell Resort since 2005 and we've raising 5 children over there. I am here today to express our opposition of the sale of the 3.5 acres of Lot 25 Municipal Reserve land of Lake Newell Resort. We have recently purchased Lot 11 in the west end of Sandpiper Estate and have already obtained the development permit to build our family home. This proposal concerns us. At the time when we purchased our land, we knew that behind us was this industrial lot, but we were not concerned because of the generous size of the municipal reserve. And we knew that the land could be beautified like all the other municipal reserve land at Lake Newell Resort, to act as a buffer between our house and this industrial lot. The same for the owner of Lot 25. He knew exactly how big this industrial lot was when he purchased it. Extending the size of this industrial lot will create a significant detriment to the property values within Lake Newell Resort community. In particular, the Sandpiper Estate, especially those of us that are backing onto the west end, will face even more devaluation. We want to highlight at this point through evidence of the North Shore Estate. That's the development next to the old storage units. To our knowledge, no lots have been sold in this area. This should serve as an indication to the county that the proposal to extend this industrial lot will cause a similar effect. We have submitted a rough proposal to the county yesterday. We would like to work together with the county and Sandpiper Estate homeowners to develop this municipal reserve into a beautiful treed, grass-based park area that would help offset the view of an industrial building from 14 people's homes. If residents were to lose this 3.9 acres, we believe there would not be adequate space for the municipal reserve to provide the necessary beautification space to offset this industrial lot. And I can maybe ask Mr. Johnson, if they do buy this extra piece of land, would we be able to plant any trees on the municipal reserve?
That's a question that I think has already been answered in the question.
I think they asked Mr. Johnson, but he never answered if there would be enough room to plant trees. He just said there would have to be enough room to bring the equipment in, but he didn't answer if there would be enough room to plant trees, actually.
I think you raised a concern that there probably wouldn't be.
Yes.
The area to the west of the ditch that we would retain has been identified for maintenance purposes on the ditch itself. It would be difficult to squeeze in room for a shelter belt as well. The width of the shelter belt, I guess, would have to be given consideration if there's going to be additional area required. But what has been identified is the area that is required just to get equipment in and out.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question for Mr. Johnson. When the county was approached to sell this portion of municipal land, was the sale open to the rest of the public for an equal opportunity to express interest in purchasing this 3.9 acre space?
We had not identified this property as one that would be put up for sale. The county does have policy that provides for expressions of interest to be received from individuals, and at that point we can enter into negotiated sales of any parcel without having to go through a full open public process, provided that value for the property has been received through that negotiated process.
All right, thank you.
Okay. 14 homes, including myself, would be directly affected by the purchase sale of this municipal reserve land. Finally, I would like to highlight that selling the additional land to the owner of lot 25 that can develop more land and have a bigger storage facility only serve to better a profit margin for the owner. This will definitely not benefit the Sandpiper Estate residents. I would like to encourage the county to please consider our suggestions. Thank you for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Just hold for a minute. Are there any questions for the presenter from council? Go ahead, Kelly.
We keep hearing, and I don't know who can answer this question, but we keep hearing that the value of properties, adjacent properties, is going to drop as a result of this business or construction. Where do we get that from? Can anybody explain that to me with some fact behind it?
I think Mr. Kelly Rasmussen might be a very good person to ask. He's a real estate agent there, and he's been selling lots of those lots as well. We just purchased our lot in December, and most of those lots were sold in that auction in, was it June or July? June. And that's one big reason why that municipal reserve hasn't been used, because the developer owned all those lots still, all this time. So nobody owned it. And that's why the homeowner association hasn't done anything to the municipal reserve, because nobody owned those lots. But now people own it.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, can you maybe answer the question?
I think somebody's might be, Kelly Rasmussen, is that
Yes.
who you're speaking to?
Yes.
I think your mic might be muted, yeah.
Hi there.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kelly Rasmussen, and I'm scheduled to speak as well. But to answer that question directly is, do I have my professional opinion is that yes, the lots would be negatively affected in value, mostly because you're moving a commercial enterprise that much closer to the homes, which would have a negative effect on almost anyone. The visual is definitely impacted. We're not here in opposition to the development as it was. We always knew that that was potentially a storage lot. So that's not up for discussion today. It's more about losing the municipal reserve. By definition, a municipal reserve is supposed to provide parks, open spaces for area residents, as well as buffers between incompatible land uses. And so if we lose that buffer space, I believe we're losing the integrity of the municipal reserve, providing a buffer between a residential and a commercial space. As far as there's a strong possibility that people that recently purchased, such as the Grovelar family, had they known that within a month and a half of their purchase that the known boundaries were going to be pushed another 40 feet closer to them, that could have definitely affected their opinion as to whether or not they would have purchased that property and develop it. And other presenters have also discussed that, yes, there has been a lack of development since 2005, but even at that time, the developer was required to provide a municipal reserve dedication at that time. And we don't know what has changed, that suddenly we don't need to have the municipal reserve dedicated in favor of a commercial development. Does that answer your question?
I think that's good. Yes, thank you. Did you have a presentation you wanted to make as well, Mr. Rasmussen, or
yes, I did have a few words that's formal. I might have stole some of those words.
I'll invite you to do that now,
but I don't mind.
Yeah, pardon me. Sorry. Go ahead and make the rest of your presentation. I think it's appropriate.
Well, thank you to council for allowing me to do so. My name is Kelly Rasmussen. I'm a resident of Lake Newell Resort for the last 17 years. I have lived at White Pelican and currently reside at Blue Heron. I believe that I have a vested interest in the proposed change as a resident of Lake Newell and a licensed realtor in the province of Alberta. I often provide counsel to people that want to live at Lake Newell or considering purchases, and in this case, development of future homes in Lake Newell in the area. I have multiple properties listed for sale as agent on behalf of other people in White Pelican, as well as on Sandpiper itself. It is my opinion that the value of the properties would be negatively affected, as well as interest in the development of the properties. Having a commercial structure directly move 40 feet closer wouldn't have a present effect. And it also could have potentially affected recent sales, such as the Grobelars, who only bought that property within the last calendar month, only to find out that a commercial enterprise is going to be that much closer to them. The original plan required the dedication of the current municipal reserve, and we're not quite sure why the original dedication now has been eliminated, and that there won't be a proper buffer between incompatible spaces as defined by what a municipal reserve is. We are not opposed necessarily to the development of the storage yard. That was a known entity that someday someone would develop it, and it was zoned for that. However, to suddenly have it a larger enterprise does have an effect. It's the change that we're opposed to. The sale of the MR will negatively affect the value of recent residential lots, existing home structures, and possibly the possible development of future homes. I believe that it'll have a long-term effect on the potential revenue of tax back to the county over the long term versus a single entity tax increase on the commercial venture. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Rasmussen? Holly Johnson, please.
Hello. I'm just curious, one of the comments the applicant has made is that it won't be unsightly because it's actually a storage building as opposed to boats and sea cans, whatever, sitting out. So are you saying it's preferable to have a smaller lot with all sorts of, like, in terms of selling units, I'm asking this question, it's better to have a smaller lot with perhaps things all over the place, or I don't know how they really work, as opposed to a building? That would have more value, or wouldn't affect home sales as much?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I'm actually not opposed to either. The issue is that it's the encroachment. It was a known entity how big the municipal reserve was, and that it would at one time be developed. And so essentially that's an acceptable point, because that's not what we're discussing. It's the movement of either a building closer, or even, like you said, more of a I don't want to say random, but yeah, it would be items in a storage lot. Either way, right now, what we're talking about is the elimination of the buffer zone between incompatible properties. Should it be a building? I do think that would be more sightly, but it's more about the location of either a building or the existing development as it is zoned at this time.
Right, but your comment was how it affected the price of the homes. So my question is back to your point about the price, the value. Is it going to be decreased if there's a storage facility there? So is it the same decrease if it's on a smaller lot? And it's, like, I don't understand if you're saying that the larger one would be more unsightly, the smaller one wouldn't be?
It's more about the proximity. It's moving of something. It's 40 feet closer, which essentially, if you look in your own environment, how far is 40 feet? We have plenty of lots available that are under 40 feet in length. So you're moving an element much closer to you. As far as the difference between a building versus more chattels, I guess, where things aren't in a permanent structure, that I don't know. I think that would require much more study, possibly from an appraiser as opposed to a realtor. So it might be a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but visually, it's more about the proximity than it is about the actual structure. I'm not opposed necessarily to the structure. If it meets the current zoning guidelines for a storage yard, that I understand. Our concern is about the proximity. I do believe that the value of the properties will be negatively affected should the storage yard be allowed to move closer.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Rasmussen? If not, thank you for your presentation, and I'll invite, are there others who want to make comments today? Go ahead, please. Come forward. Yeah, come to the table, please.
Good morning, County Councillor staff and fellow neighbors. Thank you for holding this public hearing, and thank you for taking the time to listen to our concerns today. My name is Kim McClellan. This is my husband, Scott. We have resided at Lake Newell Resort in Blue Heron View and Sandpiper Estates since 2007, raising our 2 boys. We are here today to express our strong opposition of the sale of the 0.39 acres of Lot 25 Municipal Reserve land at Lake Newell Resort. I will now express our 6 reasons for our opposition. Losing a portion of the current Municipal Reserve land will create a significant decrease to our home and our neighbors' homes' property value. This will then result in lower property taxes generated to the county. Number 2, we are concerned that if we lost a portion of the municipal reserve, that the Sandpiper Estates subdivision would never be completed. We say this because the Sandpiper Estates lots that back onto the municipal reserve were sold by an auction this past spring. It was already extremely hard to sell these lots. By losing a portion of that municipal reserve space and the potential for a commercial facility to become larger and closer to these lots, we fear this will further put off people from wanting to develop homes on them. We would like to point out the North Shore Estates for reference. The North Shore Estates subdivision backs onto the existing store stuff storage compound out at Lake Newell Resort. To my knowledge, these lots have been for sale for several years, and none have ever been sold. Using the North Shore Estates example, we are extremely concerned that this proposed increased lot space for the use of a storage facility will be an extreme detriment to further development in Sandpiper Estates, as well as for future community growth. We are also, number 3, we are concerned about increased traffic patterns, increased noise, garbage, maintenance that a bigger storage facility will bring to our neighborhood. I wish I would have brought a picture today of how close our home sits to where that increased space will actually back up, where we can see from our neighborhood, right from our back door, a 20-foot, 2-story storage building to block our view. That, I don't know, anyways, that's just side note, but Number 4, an increased size for a larger storage facility is not in high demand, nor is there a huge need for one. The City of Brooks and area already have sufficient storage businesses already developed. For example, Canada Storage Facility, Rhino Storage, Hardy Development, Store Stuff, to name a few. Just to make a point, Scott and I and our boys are avid boaters. We have a boat. We don't feel that, for us, it's not a necessity as boat owners to have covered storage that close to home. It's easy to, I mean, our boat is only being stored in covered storage in the winter months. So it's not like we need to have easy access to covered storage for our boat. Our boat sits in our driveway during the boating season, in and out. And it doesn't, if the storm comes, you cover it. That's issue solved right there. And that's like since 2007 having experience out there with that. Okay, number 5. How is it fair that the other blocks at Lake Newell Resort have and will maintain their municipal reserve space, but homeowners of Sandpiper Estates must lose a portion of theirs? The loss of municipal reserve space provides no benefit to the residents in any way. In fact, it will only cause loss for us, loss of the neighboring homes' property values and loss of community space. Unfortunately, the loss of the municipal reserve space only benefits the owner of Lot 26. Number 6, as residents of Sandpiper Estates, we would like to happily donate our time to spearhead a project to apply for beautification grants to plant trees and grass on this municipal reserve. And it hasn't been done in the past because of, I think Thelma had said, those lots have taken so long to sell that the Homeowners Association hasn't taken time to do that. But we're saying now that these lots are sold, there's the potential of another home being built, that we would like to spearhead a project to apply for beautification grants to plant trees and grass on the municipal reserve. This would then significantly reduce any costs to the county to maintain and keep the municipal reserve at the size that it currently is. We have submitted a rough proposal via email yesterday to the county and councillors. In closing, we strongly appeal to the county to not proceed with the sale of the 0.39 acre portion of the municipal reserve. We hope you see the value in our integrity and desire to protect our home and our neighbors' homes' property values. We additionally hope you see the value in our desire to protect our neighborhood's aesthetics and develop this municipal reserve space into a beautiful green space for all the community to enjoy that would also serve to offset the site of a storage facility or building from our backyards. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions? Yeah, Dan, please.
Got a couple. So you say the land is going to be significantly devalued. How much more devalued will it be based on that 40 feet? So if as was just discussed, if the shed gets built on the current property line, that's going to devalue your property. This is the assumption. How much of this significant devalue is going to happen because of that 40 feet closer?
We'd probably have to research that a little more. We haven't had a lot of time to, this kind of was sprung upon us in the past 2 weeks, but I think we're a little bit worried that, I mean, you know, our life savings are in our home, right? Yeah. So we're just worried that having a, you know, that 40 feet closer to our backyard where, you know, our children are playing and whatnot, just, I don't know, Scott might want to.
Yeah, and like Mr. Johnson said too, if that municipal reserve, if there's a building on top of it, obviously we don't have the space there to put all the beautification that's required to block this structure. So, you know, since we can't do that, like if we can't build or put trees in there, substantially devaluate would probably be, I don't know, I'm guessing $40,000, $50,000 at least. And obviously you probably might not even be able to sell your lot since you got the structure there, right? So.
Because I would assume, like, people that have bought recent lots that are maybe planning to build, if that comes that much closer, I know if people may not then choose not to build anymore and just keep their lots up for sale.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Another question was about that North Shore that you used for comparison. Does that division have the roads and services already in there and fully ready for someone to build and move in?
Yes.
It does, okay. And then, I guess, why would someone, it's not being sold, and your assumption is that it's not being sold because of the storage lot that it sits beside, but maybe there's other reasons, such as there's no one there and there's plenty of available lots where there are other people where you could have neighbors. So it's not fair to assume that they're not being sold because of the storage lot, because there's many reasons why.
No.
Someone's got to be the first, and it's always hard to get the first one in there. So there could be another reason for that other than being beside a storage lot.
Absolutely. I just like to point on that is, there's several lots in all neighborhoods at Lake Newell Resort that haven't been sold. There's not one area that's ever finished, that's been totally finished off. So I think our point with that is, now that we've finally seen these lots finally sell, we're hoping that the neighborhood of Sandpiper can maybe finally get finished, so we can see the neighborhood actually finished off, and we can bring these other things on, right? Like finish that municipal reserve space, do other things. I mean, I think a finished neighborhood would bring a lot more property value to our homes than having it sit unfinished.
For no other, thank you for that. For no other reason than decorum, I'm going to invite you to address the chair. Just
sorry.
Just decorum. Just decorum. That's all. No other reason.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. No, I appreciate your presentation.
Sorry.
Any other questions? Thank you. And Neil, please.
How strong is your Sandpiper Estates home organization? Like, you volunteered to spearhead this program, which is wonderful. But what's behind that? Like 20 members, 15? Just the two of you?
At this point, there's 4 families. There's 3 on the email I sent yesterday, and then a 4th has come forward since. And we've not talked with everybody in the Crescent yet, though.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. I'll invite, are there others that would like to make presentations to our hearing this morning? Lane, please go ahead.
I believe that Mr. Endersby has requested an opportunity to address council.
Bill Endersby, are you prepared to make a presentation to council this morning? You might be muted. I think you're muted, Bill. Can you unmute yourself there?
There we go. There we go.
There we go.
Yes, I can make a few remarks. If it's permissible. Hello, council, staff. I'm a director of the Sandpiper Estates Homeowners Association. It's like most volunteer organizations, has been hard to get people to sit on the board. We have a yearly homeowners association meeting, and usually it's only the directors and their wives and husbands that show up, maybe 1 or 2 other families. Everyone that I've spoken to is not in favor of the sale of the MR lands. Quite a few people would really like to be able to plant some trees on the west side of the MR and possibly plant some grass in the area that the county wants to hold for in case the ditch has to be renovated. Quite a few people have requested that there be a culvert put into that ditch, and the ditch then covered totally, which would then make that MR land a lot more usable. That's when I ask how much they're willing to donate to do that, there's kind of a silence usually, but that's a fairly expensive project, and everybody wants the county to do it, and I'm quite sure the county has many projects that they have on their books that might have a higher priority than that. But anyway, that's some of the things. The major thing is everyone would like the county to keep that MR land as municipal reserve. It allows Sandpiper to possibly develop it. And I've talked to about 5 people, 4 of them volunteered. I'm not at home right now. I only talked to 5 people, and 4 of them have volunteered to. They'd be quite willing to help develop that land. So seems to be there's quite a bit of interest in doing that. So like I say, I'm very much in favor of the county retaining the municipal reserve. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bill. Are there any questions for Mr. Endersby? Dan, go ahead, please.
With regards to the proposed plan to install a ditch and level it off, or install a culvert and level it off, if that was done, would that help with that? If, let's say, the sale continued and the ditch was turned into a culvert and leveled off, would that make it more palatable, or would it still be as much of a problem?
I think we would still like to keep as we do not want to move the commercial enterprise any closer to the homes than it is already. It was a known factor when everyone purchased their lots that this is where the storage lot could be developed. And I don't think that they really want it moved any closer.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks for the presentation this morning. Is there anyone else who would like to present to council this morning with regard to the question at hand? Seeing none, I'll invite the applicants to take 2 or 3 minutes to just make closing comments if they'd like to.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone bringing their concerns forward, and I think that's why we're trying to put this building there. We've expressed our intent with purchasing the land and the construction of the building. And I think in terms of the North Shore, I have to echo the councillor's sentiments that it's unfair to say that one division, the reason is because of the other lot. I think they're just not selling. If you look around, there's lots of other lots there. And I think it's also important to note that the reality is that nothing has happened with at MR in the past. We're here with a proposal. We're open to working with the county and with residents to do what we can to make this happen and to beautify it. And some of those lots, it was mentioned that they were sold at auction, but they've since been relisted and are still for sale. So to say that they've finally sold, yes, but they are again have been relisted and are sitting for sale currently. So again, we're here with a plan for that MR, and I'd like to see something done with that. So.
Yeah, I mean, we heard from people that that bought lots. Connell's comment. Did he know that this storage lot was already there? This has been a storage lot since 2005. Nothing has happened. Just because nothing has happened does not mean that the property value is going to decrease as soon as something happens. I mean, we heard a lot of arguments about how this is going to negatively impact their property value. Do they realize, I don't think people understand, that the width of the ditch and the length of the ditch is more than the property that we're trying to acquire? So for people to look at it, they have to physically go there and look at the proximity of where the ditch is. You know, when we talked to the county, we originally wanted to acquire more land, and they said no, they needed to have it to maintain it. We said, we understand that. There is a ditch to the north of this property that runs all along, that it's a huge ditch. If anything, they should be concerned about the safety of the ditch, not just about whether it's going to reduce their property. We're looking at building something that is aesthetically pleased to the eye for the whole community, to enhance the community. I mean, when we go now and look at it and we hear the opposition, are they going to be happy when we don't put a fence, we just abandon trailers wherever we want on that 1 acre that we bought? Are they going to be then happy with what is going on with the community? Or are they going to then say, maybe we should have been quiet, maybe we should have looked at how we're going to beautify the environment? We're looking at making something that looked nice, that puts a fence, that's aesthetically pleasing to the community. We're a business that's going to provide taxes to the community and help support the community. There's not a lot of businesses that are rushing out there to Sandpiper Estates or to any part of the storage to build anything. When we drive around and look at the park and look at by the marina and everything, there's a lot of vacant land there. There's a lot of open space. These people that are talking about the 40 feet, did they ever stop and realize 40 feet is the width of some of the whole lots? So if you bought a lot, your next lot is 40 feet. You're looking into the back of somebody else's house. You're not talking about an additional 15 meters plus the width of the ditch. So we're just looking at trying to beautify what's there and make it work. Now, when you go to the north of these properties that sold in auction, it's an open field. You know, like, so we're looking at it trying to say, you know, what can we do? We've seen some of the responses about the county to fill in this property. Well, I don't know if people know how much it costs to fill in a ditch that's 10 feet wide and 25 feet wide and goes all the way around. It's a huge expenditure. Now, I don't know if the county is going to do that, but why would they spend that much money on this 5 houses that border onto this property when there's other areas in the whole development that are not bordering trees, that are not bordering parks, that are not bordering any grassy reserves? We're looking at saying we're trying to make it better. We're not trying to go backwards.
Okay, thank you for your presentation this morning. If there is any other questions of anyone from council, we'll entertain those now. Otherwise, a motion to end the public hearing would be in place by council. Holly, please.
I'll make the motion to end the public hearing.
Motion to end the public hearing. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. With that, I'd like to thank everyone that came in to make presentations this morning, and I think that this matter will be considered when it's brought to council again, either later today or at another time. And we appreciate all of the presentations that have been made. We appreciate the investment that people have within our county, whether that's a home or a business. All of those things need to be put together, and I think that in terms of the process, this is how it works. There was a presentation made to the county to purchase the land that we're talking about this morning, and the public hearing today is a regular part of that process before any of that would take place. So council will reconsider all of the presentations that have been made this morning, and a decision will be made one way or the other in the future. Thank you.